Thank you for accepting our invitation. We are very happy to have you with us. I want to start with, who is Hania Adam? Can you tell us briefly about your life?
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So I'm a mum of three, alhamdulillah. I grew up as a Sikh. My parents are Indian. Born and raised in the UK. Amazing childhood, alhamdulillah, very loving parents. But I became Muslim at the age of, I think, 24, 25. Big shock to my family, big shock. And alhamdulillah, working at Green Lane Masjid and any Muslim organisation really that I can support.
How was your life in regards to faith? What were you believing in?
When I grew up, my parents taught us the Sikh faith, which I have to admit I really liked. I remember visiting like the Golden Temple, Amritsar, loving it. I remember visiting like Himkund Sahib, where it's like actually more of a Hindu ashram. And I did actually really enjoy it. I remember from a young age, I always felt there was a need for God in my life. I felt happier and content when I used to go to these places. So I would say, you know, growing up, alhamdulillah, my parents did install faith in me. They gave me really good morals, ethics, you know, working hard, educating, being honest. They, you know, brought me up really well. And I think, you know, by the time I got to university, I was living more of a secular lifestyle. So I wasn't practicing a religion, so to speak. So there was a spiritual side, but I wasn't practicing any religion. You know, I would, to be honest with you, you know, drinking alcohol wasn't a problem. Wearing whatever I wanted to wear, it wasn't an issue. It was just normal. There was nothing wrong with it. It's just a normal lifestyle. So that's, before I became Muslim, that's the type of life that I was living.
How did you first hear about Islam? Did you have any prejudices?
I did. Maybe I was slightly Islamophobic. I thought that, you know, there was a lot going on, Iraq and so on. I think I used to get scared if I heard the words Allahu Akbar. It used to scare me. I used to think that Muslim men are all, you know, very strict, you know, beat their wives and all sorts of stuff. You know, there was always the issue of Aisha radiallahu anha and her age. There were so many stereotypes. I used to think Muslim women are suppressed. Why do they have to wear a hijab? It's not right. I had lots of issues.
How did your journey towards Islam begin? What impressed you the most about Islam?
Funnily enough, with all the stereotypes that I had of Muslim women, the first thing that I looked into in Islam was women in Islam. So I listened to so many talks, read a lot on the internet. There's a book called The Great Women of Islam by Darussalam, which is absolutely incredible. In my head, women were oppressed. Then I started reading into Islam and I realized, no, it's society that's oppressing women, and Islam is very advanced. In fact, it's so advanced that I think we're still struggling to catch up with it now as a society, and inshallah it will come back stronger, because now with all the issues we're having with gender roles and identity, I think Islam has all the answers to that, and maybe it's time we caught up, because Islam liberates women in so many ways. It puts women up here, actually. If, you know, society understands that, they will realize, like I did, that subhanAllah, Islam, you know, gives women so many rights that they, you know, we never had before in this country, in the Muslim countries. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ taught us how to respect women. You know, that's through giving us, like I said, you know, the dowry, just as an example. The woman had to give money to the man. Now the man gives the dowry to the women. That's like a big thing for the people that used to, you know, get upset when they gave birth to a daughter. You know, so much that they would kill her. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ would say that, you know, if you raise a daughter, if you raise daughters, you know, you're giving Jannah. You know, you'll be like this with me in Jannah.
What is the main thing that convinced you that Islam is 100% the truth?
Going into Green Lane Masjid. I remember the moment I first walked into a masjid and I saw sisters that were covered head to toe in black, really flowing. And it's funny, we talk about Harry Potter, but they reminded me of the Harry Potter scene in Hogwarts where they're all like in their robes. And that was the first thing that I thought. And then I thought, wow, like they've chosen to be like that. I want to feel confident like that, because I'm walking around in my miniskirt. I want to know what it feels like to walk around like that. It wasn't just that, they were very welcoming and very loving, very kind, very supportive. And you know, you don't know, sometimes we do make it difficult for ourselves when we don't communicate with other people. I'd never spoken to Muslim women that wore a niqab. In fact, I hadn't really spoken to any Muslim women. So it was my first encounter. Just the fact that they smile. We're so prejudiced. We have so many stereotypes. We think that women in niqab don't smile. And then there was all these women and they're smiling, they're laughing, they're joking. And I thought, you know, they're normal, they're human. They're not just these black floating figures. They're human and they're great women.
How did you take your shahada and how did you feel?
So my next visit to that masjid was when I took my shahada. Yeah, alhamdulillah. And there was about 60, 70 people there. And the closest people to me at that time that took my shahada are still the closest people to me now, alhamdulillah. So taking my shahada was amazing. I remember shaking a lot, but it felt good. It felt really good. I remember doing the ghusl of, you know, taking the shahada, and I literally felt this is a new life for me. It's a new start. You know, knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wipes everything clean, but then still gives you the reward of the good that you did. It felt really good, and I was ready to take on that identity of a Muslim woman, so I just started reading. And
how did your family and the people around you react to your reversion to Islam?
It was extremely difficult, but in that difficulty was the ease at the same time. I didn't recognize it because they completely cut me off. I had no choice but to rely on Allah, because my marriage as a result became very difficult as well. Having children on my own was a difficulty in itself. Every point of my life was difficult. Sometimes I think to myself, why am I still Muslim, you know? Because sometimes you go through so many tests. Like I said, there's always that thought in my mind that, you know, my family is there. They're an hour away from me. Why am I still living like this when I'm struggling on my own, when I'm like struggling with the kids or financially or whatever? Why am I still here? And that, I think, is what keeps me going, because just as an example, I went through a divorce. It was very, very horrible, very difficult. And in that time, I was alone. I'll be honest with you, I was struggling to stay alive. I didn't know if I wanted to be alive. There were so many issues that I was dealing with at that time. And at that time, I went to see my auntie. I didn't plan it. It just sort of happened. I just turned up at her doorstep. And for the first time in 10 years, someone from my family showed me love. She was amazing. She made me tea. She sat with me and she said, "Are you all right?" Just that. "Are you okay?" It's always happens. That's my auntie. That was the first time family member asked me, "Are you okay?" And she said, "What are you going to do? Have you got a plan?" Because I had nothing. And all I had was my 3 children. And by Allah, I didn't want to leave her house. And I sat there and I thought, oh gosh, what if I just hide my Islam? And my Islam just in my heart. But what if I just come back home? Because they loved me and I wanted to stay. I didn't want to leave her house. I wanted to stay in her house. I wanted to give up everything, not my deen.